perfect, he must exist, and therefore God exists?
No, I said that if basically I use my own moral proof, that doesn't really follow Islam's ontological argument.
So what's the argument?
So basically, P1, if God can occupy properties, then there is a possible world where God can be omnipotent, and another possible world where he can be omniscient but not omnipotent, etc. within an experimental relation. So if there are variants that we can apply differentiation on God's essence, then it will be a variant of identities, which means that God doesn't hold the same moral status. So the subsets of maximum perfection must all be accounted for in order to avoid such variations in the possible world, since they can be conceived as essential features of his essence that can't be departed from his essence. Basically, that's my argument.
Wait, what was the first premise?
Yeah, so if you define God as just a necessary being, he can have any properties, then in a possible world, God can be omnipotent. In another possible world, God
if you're defining God as necessary being.
No, a necessary being and a maximally perfect being.
Okay, so you're defining. Okay, I mean, this is just like begging the question 101, right? Like, the argument's supposed to establish that. I mean, it is. It obviously 100%, 1000% is, right? Because you began the conversation. You began the conversation by saying you're going to show me God exists, and then what you did was say, look, I just define God as a necessary being and a maximally perfect being. But necessary means that you exist in all possible worlds. So you're saying, look, I think that God just is this perfect being that exists in all worlds. That just begs the question. I want to know why he exists at all. Not just about all worlds.
No, that's not what I said. You just want me to find God within my own paradigm, and I just recited the definition. I didn't even get to tell me.
Yeah, it doesn't matter about the definition because you can't define.
I use a distinct argumentation.
It would just be begging the question. I don't know what you're not understanding. If you define God, if you define God, why does he keep talking over me? If you define God, why does he keep talking over me? If you define God for the last time as a necessary being, then any time the word God pops up in the premise, all that translates to is a necessary being that's maximally perfect. That's what it translates to. And so if the conclusion is meant to be that God exists, right, the conclusion actually just translates to a necessary being exists, which then just translates to a being that exists in all possible worlds exists. But you see how that begs the question, right? Like pretty obviously begs the question.
Yes, I know, and I never say that God being a necessary being by definition implies existence. I explicitly denied Islam's proof, which uses God's necessary existence.
So wait, do you disagree? Do you disagree that necessary being implies that being exists? Do you disagree with that?
Yes, existence can be particularly true. Wait. Okay. What did you say?
Do you disagree that if something is necessary, then it exists?
What? If something is necessary, then it cannot exist? What?
No, if something is necessary, then it exists. Do you disagree with that?
No, I don't disagree with it. I don't disagree with it.
Okay, so you think if something is necessary, then it exists, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, so then what that means is if you define God as necessary, then you define God as existent, yes?
Yeah, within a second order stage.
So hold on, just to be clear. Do you agree that if you define God as necessary, then he exists?
What do you say?
If you define God as necessary, then he exists.
I mean, if you say that by implication alone or something, then no, I'm just assigning a moral status within a scope. However, if you're telling me by
I don't understand how on earth like this isn't making sense to you, right?
Yeah, a flexible relation within a flexible relation, then of course God being necessary.
If I say
by reflexive, wait, stop cutting me off.
You're not saying anything substantive. You're not even answering the question. You went from saying it and agreeing with me.
I'm clarifying what I meant.
I don't even know what you said. I don't know if you said yes or no.
No. As I said that, I clarified my position in my usage of definitions. I said
so
that.
Was it a yes or a no?
Wait. Oh my god.
Look, I'll deafen Will. Just tell me when he answers the question for yes or a no, please. I'm not interested in the ramble. I just want a yes or a no to the question.
No. Simply no.
Not this again. Oh my god.
So I was this
Alright, cool. So I'm gonna re-ask the question again, and this time I'm going to type out your answer.
Oh my god! I answered by no within that.
Okay, wait. So there's just a contradiction. Then there's just a contradiction there. Obviously, there's a contradiction. So he went from agreeing. I'm pretty sure I made this very explicit. Stop talking.
It's a reflexive relation.
Notice how when you interact with these subhumans from other sides of the community, they start over talking you when they realize that what they're saying is wrong. Just accept that you said something correct. Right? What you first said, stop. What you first said to me, stop talking. What you first said to me, I'm going to make this very explicit. What you first said to me, and everybody in the VC can attest to this, what you first said to me, right? What you first said to me, see, no one can hear you, by the way, I'm louder than you. But what you first said to me, just to be clear, after I let you finish speaking, by the way, what you first said to me was this. I asked you this question, right? If something is necessary, then do you agree that it exists?
Oh my god,
stop. Why does he keep talking? Right? And we can ask anyone in the VC, I asked this question explicitly.
You didn't even get
stop talking. Now he's afraid.
The question was stated. I gave him that I can answer to, since you could easily trap me.
Bro, what the fuck?
Oh, stop. Everyone, do not
Wait, who muted bro?
Wait, hold on. Do not fucking fight, okay? Both of you niggas are my friends. Alright, don't stop. Take fucking turns and stop being fucking children, okay? Scene.
Okay, yeah, take turns.
Hold on, wait, shut the bro. You be quiet, man. Okay, so I'm just gonna let C talk, okay? So C, make your argument, go.
I mean, look, it's not even a fact of arguments. I just want him to answer my questions and stick by those answers. It's like, if you guys would mind unmuting him, these are leading questions, so I want to get to the point. But in order for me to get to the point, I need to know that we're on the same page, right? The first question that I'm going to ask you, which is a yes or no question, by the way, is if something is necessary, does that mean that it exists, right? In this world, in the actual world? That's what I'm asking you, okay? And I just want a yes or a no. That's like a yes or a no, right? There's no need to say, oh, well, it depends. I just want a yes or a no. Right? It's just a short answer. You can even type it in chat. Is that a yes or a no?
Yes.
Okay, so you guys go ahead. I'm going to repeat one more time just so we're all clear. If something is necessary, then it exists in the actual world. That's a yes. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay, now to say that God is defined as necessary is just to say that God is necessary, right? Because definitions tell us what objects are. So when you say God is defined as a necessary being, that's just to say, or that implies, that entails that God exists in the actual world. Yes or no?
No, because we're using a singular or a scope or quantification within the moral status to say that God is necessary, not a first or definition to derive that.
Yeah, you guys heard this.
Hey, hold on. I think I understand what Seem is saying. He's saying that if we say God exists, the condition is that he is a necessary being. Like, for example, if you say that a pencil exists, this pencil, if it does exist, on the condition if it does exist, it falls under having this property, right? So if you say, it's the same thing here. Seem is saying that if you say God exists, then he is a necessary being. He's not saying, like, you know, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I don't. And ironically, if he's saying, like, if God exists, he exists in all possible worlds or something, is that what he's saying? If that's what he's saying, that's different from saying that God is necessary, right? Because to define God as necessary is just to define God as a being that exists in all possible worlds, right? Like, I don't understand. So is he defining God as necessary or not?
Yeah, on the he's defining it. Yeah.
Within a
Under what scope? I don't even know what he's saying now. Under what modal scope?
Wait. Within a special oral scope. Now, first oral scope, that will entail begging the question within your argument.
On what scope?
A second oral scope.
Okay, I don't know what that means. If all you mean to say is like if this being exists, he either exists in all possible worlds or he doesn't, that's fine. Right, that's fine. Now we
suggested that my definition of God means finding God as a necessary being, therefore exists in the actual world. That will beg the question. Why? No. I mean, it's different scopes of definitions. We are evaluating most as the God in assigning actual properties for predication. Wait, stop cutting me off. Holy shit.
You're considering. Are you equivocating on what necessary means? Keep in mind, if the definition of necessary doesn't change.
I know what necessary means.
No, that's not what I asked you. I just said
that a second order, I'm using a second order scope to evaluate God with a moral status. Not a first order one that will make up, I beg the question. So yeah, just if you can track even for 1 second, then you will realize that your argument falls off.
He doesn't stop talking. He just doesn't stop talking. So, is the definition of necessary changing? Yes or no?
No. Are you even tracking?
No, you agree.
Stop over talking.
You agree that it's an issue then to define God as necessary if you want to prove that he exists. Because if the definition of necessary stays the same, right, then to say that God is just defined as necessary is just to define God as a being that exists in all worlds, including the actual one. And that's an issue. I don't care about the scope. I don't care that these are all like gibberish terms you made up. This debate to try and rationalize and justify the fact that what you're saying is incorrect. If you're understanding it conditionally, I already said understanding it conditionally is not meant to be an aspect of a definition. If I say, for example, that if Rizhan was a dolphin, right, then, he could, swim in the sea or something. That's not me defining Rizhan as a dolphin or defining Rizhan as this being that swims in the sea. Right? Maybe you want to define God as a being that's possibly necessary or something, maybe, or something like that. And even then, I think there's an issue there, depending on the semantics. But what you're doing right now is obviously just begging the question, right? I don't understand how we're not understanding this.
I just clarified that within the paradigm I just provided, your assertion of me begging the question will fall apart. So yeah.
Okay, so is it the case?
And wait.
Guys, stop! Wait. Oh my god! I'm not finished.
He literally just paused. Like, he just took a break and then he said, wait.
Oh my gosh, stop over talking. Dude, look, Seem, look. Look, bro, don't pause, right? If you say something, don't take a pause. Don't wait for 5 seconds. Right? If you say something like, hello, how are you? Don't wait for 5 seconds and say something else. Just say it all together in one sentence, because this nigga C will make the assumption that you are done, right? And he's not wrong for assuming that, right? So if you're gonna say something, don't take a pause or break. For the love of God. Oh my gosh. And also, I just want to clarify something. Seem is saying that based off this, all definitions will just be invalid, because if you say that, well, a pencil has these properties, and you're saying that's what a pencil is, that's not going to be, because that's already going to be assuming that the pencil exists in the first place. What he's saying is that we have to prove that a being that falls under the criteria of being a necessary being exists. He's not saying that we're already assuming there is a necessary being. That's his problem. Like, okay, I'm just let C speak. Since next time, C, don't take a break.
This is stupid. I mean, I don't know why I have to explain really basic modal concepts to people. I mean, like, it's not that hard to understand. If I'm debating Will, and Will asks me, why does the pencil exist? And I say, okay, well, let's start off by saying that this pencil was necessary and maximally perfect. And then Will ask me, quite reasonably, wait, when you say necessary there, does that mean that it exists in all worlds, including the actual one? And I say, yeah. I'm defining this pencil as necessary, and when I define the pencil as necessary, what I mean to say is that I define this pencil as a pencil that exists in all worlds, including the actual one. And Will says you're begging the question. You can't just define something as existing when what you're supposed to be showing me is that it exists, right? Unless you're defining it in this trivial sense, nobody cares. We want to get an argument that leads to the fact that it exists, not you presupposing that it exists within the argument, right? Otherwise, I'll just deny every single premise, right? And then Will's like, no, I'm using it in the second order sense where it doesn't actually beg the question. He just refuses to fucking elaborate. It's like the lowest tier sort of debating I've seen in my life, right? I gave him so many chances to clarify what he means. I said, does the definition of necessary change? Maybe that's what he means, right? Maybe he's understanding necessary in some other sense. He said no. So it sounds like what's going on here is he has this being called God. He defines God as necessary. He agrees that for something to be necessary, that just means it exists in all worlds, including the actual one. And so to define something as necessary entails that it exists in the actual world. And yet he denies that this begs the question when the conclusion of the argument is to show the conclusion of the argument. Anyways, the conclusion of the argument, is to show that God exists in the actual world. Like, if you wrote this out in a syllogism, what the conclusion would be tantamount to saying would be, a being that exists in all worlds, including the actual world, exists in the actual world. Is that not just a tautology? Like, you're just fucking repeating yourself. Look, if you don't give me a response that's adequate, I'm just going to move on from this point. This is like fucking retarded.
Again, the definition I was using is conditional in the case that if we prove that God actually exists, then it doesn't hold extra determinations that could make him contingent. So it's not a possibility that he's necessary. It's not if it's a conditional, basically. So when I said that we're evaluating God's moral status within a second order scope, I'm saying that we're evaluating his moral status and accounting for all of his predicates all at once. So we're not defining him or adding properties to him or to his identification. We're just saying that he holds a necessary status with his identifications via the citation of his concept. And I'm not saying that if God is necessary or by definition in a way that it's an analytical consequence, then it must exist. I said that if we manage to prove that God actually exists, then it follows that he exists in all possible worlds, since there is no restraints that could make him contingent or fail to exist within an accessible relation. Let's go.
Let me hold on before anything happens.
I understand what he's saying. I understand what he's saying. You don't need to pipe up. Look, all he's saying now, for anyone that could understand that long-winded monologue that came out of his mouth was, hey, I'm not defining God as necessary. I'm just saying, look, if God exists, then he'd be necessary. Right, but that's different from defining God as necessary. No logician, I shouldn't say no logician, that's pretty broad. But a lot of logicians don't take existence to be something that can be a part of an object's definition. And so when you say something like, I define this thing as necessary, I define this thing as existent, right? Most people are going to disagree with you because they don't think you can define something as existent. They don't think you can define something as necessary. They don't think you can define these things in the way that you're trying to do so. And so I can agree, perhaps, that if God does exist, then he's necessary. And so if he doesn't exist, right, then he's impossible, given that you can exist in some world, and that would be tantamount to saying that he exists in all worlds. But I'm not going to agree that God is defined as necessary. So if that clarified, you can now give the argument, right? Now that we've clarified that you cannot define God as necessary, which you just agreed to.
Bro. Oh my God. Wait. As I said before, a definition doesn't have to be constrained within a first order predication. It can be a second order predication, aka existence, which many analytical philosophers, even those who think that existence is not a predicate grammatically, since it doesn't express a style verb with an analytical verb, is holds over predicates over the subject grammatically as an actual property or a mode of expression within his identification. So if I said that God is existent, I'm not adding actual substantial properties to existential identification. I'm making a mode of assertion over his concept or identity, not over his identity, not adding to his identity itself. So there are different scopes of definitions that I'm using in this context, and only your inference only follows that if I use the definition of existence or necessary existence within the first order scope, which again I did not do that, which again, as I explained before, is doesn't flow from your argument.
Okay, I'm gonna clap for him, guys. He repeated what he said in his last monologue. Okay.
Yeah,
now that you've gone clear that you want to talk about first order versus second order predication, which, by the way, isn't even relevant to what I was talking about, right? Because you can believe that something is second order predication and yet still deny, or sorry, you can believe something is a first order predicate and still deny, right, that this thing is a part of an object's definition, right? You could still do that, right? Like in free logic, you might say something like, there are some objects such that exists X, and like you're saying the object exists, and yet you might still deny that existence is a part of the object's definition. That's perfectly fine. All I'm doing here is showing you that defining an object as existing, and then trying to give an argument for why the object exists is redundant. If you define the object as existing, I don't care what sense it is, by the way, I've already clarified, I don't care what sense it is. If you say this object just is necessary, then it's redundant to give an argument for its existence, right? Because the whole point is that if you're giving this as a definition, it's trivial that it exists, just entailed by what you defined it as. You don't have to go through this long-winded, it's the second order predication and the analytic philosophers, they agree with me. You don't have to do none of that. Just say, I define it as this thing that exists, and so it exists. That's perfectly fine, right? So that's what I'm asking you to do. If you can't do that for me, if you can't give me an argument, right, that doesn't rely on the fact that this being is already necessary, or this being is already something that exists, then I'm not interested. So I'll just ask you a yes or no question. In your argument, right, what's the first premise? I'm not yes or no question. I'll just ask you, in the argument, is the first premise something that says that God is necessary?
Oh my god. As
that's
I said before,
that's yes or no. That's yes or no. That's yes or no. That's a yes or no. That's a yes or no. That's
oh my god.
That's a yes or no. That's a yes or no. Someone ping secret. Someone ping secret. This guy is a gibber. Someone ping secret. 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 He's liberating again. He's liberating again.
Holy shit. You're not even tracking it.
You're liberating again. I want a yes or no. 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 No one can hear you. I want you to be very clear on this. Nobody can hear you. I just want a yes or no to my question. In your argument, is the first premise something that says that God is necessary? That's a yes or a no. Like, I just want a yes or a no. Why is it so difficult for this guy to answer yes or no questions? Like, just if you want, type it in chat, bro. That's a yes or a no. You look at your argument in your notepad, right? P1 : does it say God is necessary? Yes or no? Yes or no? Why is it taking him so long to type yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes. Okay. Stop. Stop there. Don't talk anymore. What's the argument for premise one? Why is God necessary? Is it definitional?
Oh my god, it's so retarded.
Stop. He's doing it again.
You're so retarded. I'm saying that this is the case we need to prove. We are its own premises. Holy shit, you're so retarded. Can you track? Second order prediction doesn't matter. Holy shit, you're so retarded. Second order prediction doesn't matter.
The question is, why is it okay? Ask him, bro.
Holy shit,
this guy's a bug.
Like, you even know what?
You won't let me give critique. You gave the premise one. Premise one says that God is necessary. I'm saying, why? Is this a definitional thing? Yes or no?
Within which scope? I say that. Can you try?
He's a retard.
I didn't even track it.
Okay. You know what? We're not gonna do this. Just give me the argument for premise one. Because every time I ask him, is it definitional? He says, in what scope? What makes premise one true? Just tell me. I'm gonna mute. I'm gonna talk over you. Even I've not been talking over you the past 30 minutes. I'm going to let you speak. Just tell me what motivates premise one. I'm going to mute my mic. Okay? Everyone, listen to what he says.
Yeah, again, I'm going to make you. I'm just illusion, you know. So, premise one is God. If God exists, then it must be a necessary and maximal perfect being. Premise 2, a chain of causation or Gaussian links cannot extend infinitely, since a referent within a temporal sequence would qualify as a higher bound over any regressions, which is the only alternative we can have for an state being causing a chain of causations or cypoids, which is mathematical prediction, since within set n or natural numbers, if n belongs to a set of natural numbers, then n plus 1 belongs to a set of natural numbers as well. However, if number s that is derived from the higher bound is bigger than the natural number set, this is a contradiction, since it both has and doesn't have a position within the number line. This would be not be. So premise 2, we have premise 3, we have distinctive syllogism. We can infer that a necessary being exists. Now, to prove that a necessary being is maximally perfect,
no, I don't want that. Please stop. Please stop. Please stop. Notice how he said, we can infer that a necessary being exists. All of that nonsense was for him to get to the conclusion that a being that exists in all possible worlds actually does exist. Well done. Mashallah. Okay, now we're going to go back to premise 1.
No, right.
None of that. Sorry.
You were just confused.
Stop talking.
You're just confused. You're just confused. You're going to the tracking. That's why I just need you before I make the argument. Before making the argument.
Stop talking. Stop talking. This guy's a jahil. He's a jahil. He doesn't know what he's saying. Stop talking. Look.
Oh my God. I'm not a jahil. I'm not a jahil. You're white ass.
We're going to go back to premise 1. We're going to go back to premise 1.
Oh my God.
We're going to go back to premise 1. Because what I asked you was, is premise
yes,
the first question I asked you, stop talking.
Oh my
stop
God.
Talking. The first question that I asked him, right, for the audience, which I made very explicit, was in premise 1, does it mention that God is necessary? He said yes. And then I asked him, the second question was, what is the motivation? Stop talking. Stop talking. Stop talking. Stop talking.
I know you're going to repeat the same shit. That's why I tell you why.
Active.
I'm not here to listen to your brain on it.
what the fuck? Wait, where is he? Where did he go? Oh, he's doing it. Okay, so see him, bro.
Yeah,
wait. Please. Take turns, bro.
Me him, bro. Let me talk.
Okay,
let me talk. Let me talk. He keeps berging over me. And ironically, okay, if you look at chat, just take a moment to look at chat. This Dawood guy was saying exactly what I was saying. He just didn't track the question. And that's fine. I'm not expecting you to be a robot tracking every fucking thing. I just want you to be honest when you fail to track and then engage with it next time. The second question that I asked you was, what's the motivation for premise 1? And then you went and gibbered about the argument initially. Not the motivation for premise 1, but just the argument initially. So I'm going to give you another chance. I just got my McDonald's, by the way. I'm trying to eat. You feel me? Watch YouTube. I'm going to give you another chance to give me the motivation for premise 1, why if God exists, he must be necessary, because that's not obvious to me. It's not obvious why if God exists, he has to exist in all possible worlds, right? So just give me the motivation for premise 1, right? And if you can't do that for me, bro, then, bro, I'm going to leave the VC, bro. You feel me? I'm going to save the recording here, bro. Thanks.
Yo, guys, bro, I really didn't care about this debate, though I did care about my PFP. So, like, can you guys rate my PFP, bro? Is it cute, bro? Is it good?
Anyways, wait. That's it. As I was saying that if necessary being exists, then we obviously can't apply the same criteria of him having grounding, like otherwise it will fall to the same probability of which again I established as a mathematical prediction. So if it doesn't have a grounding link, then there is no space in which we can formulate a serial pair in which he doesn't exist. For example, you will need a space of formulations of scenarios where X can fail to exist. For example, if X is composed of concrete parts, then there is a possible world where the parts cannot position X that will dismantle a neurological fusion and this invalidate his identification. And the same doesn't apply to the CB, aka God. So by inferring this, we can infer that God doesn't have any any space of a state of affair where we can formulate the factor that
wait. What's the wait? No, I want to be clear on something quickly. That you said. What's the justification? Right, so we're really clear. Was the justification that if God is necessary, then there is no space in which he does not exist, no formulatable state of affairs where he does not exist? That justification?
Yeah, because there is no factors to formulate such arguments.
Alright, save the rec, bro. Save the rec. He just said, if P, then P. Nice.
Yeah, and it's different.
He just begged the question again. Obviously, if God is necessary, then you can't formulate a state of affairs where he does not exist, because that's just what it means to be necessary. Well fucking done.
Oh my god, holy shit. You didn't even shock my argument. God, not shocking my argument at all.
Okay.
Oh my god.
Maybe that's true, but I'm not interested anymore.
Go watch some YouTube. Go watch some YouTube.
I'm not interested anymore. He's running. He's running. Premise one. Premise one.
What do you mean running? You're the one who said that I watch YouTube.
Now just bug him.
If you can't stand people in first, then go watch some YouTube. I'm not engage you in this.
You shut your mouth, man. You shut your mouth.
No. Cry about it. So yeah, anyways.
Look,
so if you can't understand,
if you can't
track people argumentation, then I suggest you just go watch them.
I asked him explicitly, and everyone in the VC can attest to this. I asked him explicitly, are you just saying if God is necessary, then there is no formulatable states of affairs where he does not exist? And he said yes. And I said that's begging the question. That's just what it means to be necessary. And then he started spurging again. Right? I don't understand how difficult it is.
Wait. Yeah, hold on. So, look, everyone, stop. Please, stop. Listen to me, bro. I'm your brother. Like, I'm your Muslim brother. Listen to me. Just in case this nigga speaks as well, and mute him as well. Yeah, so from the first point, so basically what C said is that he said he agrees that sure it's fine if you say that it's a condition, right? Seems himself said, yeah, it's a conditional definition, right? So let's explain what conditional definition is. So the first hypothesis is just going to be the linguistic condition hypothesis. So basically, what it is that when you say that X has this, right? When you say X has this, what you're saying is that if it exists, okay, he left VC. Yeah, okay, I'll just save this real quick. And I'll explain why I seemed to one, because I don't think he tracked, to be honest. Okay. So everyone be quiet, because once I record, I'm gonna get...
Dog shit ass debate, bro. My PP is slap.
But action, please, like... Bro, stop, everyone, stop, please. I just want to give my judgment on to why I seemed wrong. So action, please don't speak, okay? In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, okay, so this is going to be my judgment on why I think Seem won the dialect between him and C. So C didn't understand the proposition that what Seem was stating, right? So Seem said that God is a necessary being, right? And then C asked the question whether if a necessary being exists in all state of affairs, including the actual world. Seem said, yeah. Okay, so then, well, basically, what he was trying to convey, what C was trying to convey is that based off this, Seem is just begging the question, because based on the definition that God is a necessary being, this would be begging the question since he's just defining God as something that exists. But he wants to know why God exists, okay? So, this is going to be the reason why I didn't understand, okay? So, first of all, what Simu said, he established externally that when we say that God exists, he's using the reverse linguistic hypothesis, which is the reverse linguistic hypothesis is just saying that when we give definitions or when we assign definitions to concepts, what we are just saying is that if concept X did exist, then it would have this criteria, right? So then also Sim also elaborated on or gave us sufficient extrapolation that he's not assigning an existence to the thing, right? So it's still conditional, right? Because he is talking about the existence. He's giving a description about the existence of the thing, okay? So for example, if you say that B's existence is contingent, that's giving a description about the existence of the thing, right? So basically, again, the linguistic reverse hypothesis still applies, because if you say that God is a necessary being, that's not assuming he exists. That's saying if God exists, then his existence would be necessary, right? So, and then Well, he himself agreed that this is not invalid. He said, sure, that's fine. But he's saying that Seem never said this, which he did. He even clarified that he said this is a conditional definition. So it's based off a condition, right? So this is why I don't think Seem won the dialect. Oh my gosh, bro. This shit's wild.
Wait. Who did not win and who win? Tell me. I was not listening.
Yeah, so Seemed won.
Seemed beaten C. Whoa, wait. You think I can't beat C, but you think Seemed beat C? Are you dead fucking ass, nigga? What is this troll, bro?
Like, okay, hold on. Like, yeah, I think Seemed won, right? I think like you can beat Seemed if it depends on if you go on the semantic level, right? Because he's like really bad at semantics, but if you do like talking about pure philosophy, I think Seemed or you can't beat him.
Okay.
So like the reason why Seemed beat him was just pure semantics, right? So the thing is that again I have to explain this again. So the reason why Seemed won is because he said that when he's giving the definition, when he's assigning the description of necessity to God, he's using the linguistic reverse hypothesis. The linguistic reverse hypothesis is just that when we assign a definition to a subject or a concept, we're just saying that if X existed, it would have this feature, right? So that's basically why it seemed one, right? So like, for example, let's say we have a pencil, okay? And then you say, if this pencil existed, it would be yellow, right? So when Seem says, if God exists, right? If God exists, if God exists, it would be necessary that God exists, okay? So he's giving a conditional. I'm not gonna lie, based off C's own understanding, his definition of a contradiction would also be back in the question, okay? So if he debated a dialethius and he said that a contradiction is something that is impossible.
We don't care. Fuck. We already finished arguing about this shit. We don't care.
Who voted for C? Hold on. How can I check who voted for C? Yo, Axiom,
you click the vote. You could just click the amount of people. Okay, when you vote, right?
Nigga, shut up. Who voted for C? Hold on. Remove Rizhan's vote.
Rizhan voted for C. What the fuck? Nigga wasn't even in the debate, bro. How fucking embarrassing. He was not. What? He was what?
No, Astrolix is a troll. No, get Astrolix vote off. He's a fucking troll. Axiom, remove Astrolix, dude. This guy's a troll, hold on.
What?
Like, Astrolix is not even listening. Astrolix was not even listening, bro. Get his vote off.
What the fuck, my nigga? Yo, you know what? You know what I'll do, bro? Instead of doing that, I'm gonna pin my girlfriend, join VC. Because I don't give a shit about what you just said right now. I only care about her, bro. Get in here. Talk to me.
Look, so basically, let me just explain this simply. What C was saying is that if you define God as a necessary being, you're just saying that God exists. And that's begging the question because he wants to know why God exists. And Steve was saying that he's giving a conditional definition, right? So conditional definition is that if God... If he had existence, then he would be necessary. That's all what Steve was saying. So, yeah. That's why I think Seemed won.
Okay. So if Seemed won, I don't care, bro. Okay, I do not care. So yeah, that was okay.